Good afternoon, everyone. A Saturday edition of On Cue coming at you about 17 past 1 o'clock hour on the East Coast. As always, I am your host, Rich Quinones. Get social with us, follow, connect, get in on the conversation. We're coming at you from the friendly confines of the SR 1029 FM, the Game Remote Studios. You can capture us on Coastal Sports Digital Network. Download the Odyssey app. Very easy to do. And then you'll see Coastal Sports Digital Network. As I mentioned, X, Rumble, Kicks, the multiple YouTube channels on another nasty Saturday on the East Coast. But how about this? Hope everyone had a good Sports Friday. You are enjoying your early Saturday in January the 3rd, 2025. As I mentioned, hashtag on Q. Get in on the conversation. We wanted to get a little rapid fire version of On Q today, powered from our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. And as always, they do a phenomenal job. And of course, Three Brooks Bourbon, get ready with tea, because you got some meaningful football today. And then obviously, you've got a boatload of games on Sunday, and there's a lot to be determined. And as I mentioned earlier in the week, we got to get into it. It's a very busy time in the world of sports. You guys have been absolutely phenomenal. And as I mentioned, the views, the comments, the engagement. Hey, it's a Saturday. We got to get it. That's just how we do it. We got to get it on a Saturday edition of On Q. No banker hours on this Saturday. Is the bank even open on Saturdays, or is it perhaps a little drive through, as we like to say? All right. So Lloyd's going to join me at about 15 or so. You've got the double dip today: Carolina, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a slight favorite in this one. The winner wins the NFC South. 8 o'clock this evening, Seattle, San Francisco. The winner gets home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Tomorrow, AFC North, the Ravens and the Steelers. We'll get into that game because, as I mentioned, I think it's fascinating. Sit them or start them, rest them or play them. There's a lot of sentiment, a lot of thought going on right now in the NFL, how some of these coaches are going to play it close to the vest. And I've got a couple thoughts on that. But as I mentioned, you've got the NFC South today. That'll be the first game, Carolina and Tampa Bay. I kind of gave you my thoughts. Well, I did give you my thoughts on this game. I believe that Carolina, they are a team that's certainly on the rise. Tampa Bay has not been able to have that consistent season. They've had some injuries. Baker Mayfield has not played at the highest level. Evans has been banged up. Their wide receivers been banged up. Really haven't been able to get that ground game going. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's going to be a monumental upset, but I'll say this. I believe Carolina does go into Tampa Bay and they beat the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, the reason that I think this game is also interesting to watch is because if we're talking about some of these coaches who are perhaps on the hot seat, and there's a bunch of them, by all accounts, it appears that head coach Todd Bowles, Tampa Bay Bucks head coach, GM Jason Light, they appear to be safe even if the Bucks were to lose this game, and then obviously that means they're eliminated from playoff contention. Now, can the same be said in Vegas, Cleveland? Can the same be said in Washington? Believe it or not, or Cincinnati, which we will dive into today as well, because I think Black Monday in the NFL, never ever a fun time, but you just know that some of these teams cannot deal with just consistent losing. Consistently losing, bad product, bad football, whether you want to blame the GMs, whether you want to sit there and blame the head coaching. I mean, it all goes, uh, uh, listen, GMs, head coaches, they're all connected to each other. You know it, and I know it. Now, what I think is really going to be fascinating is the dynamic that is what I believe might transpire in Baltimore and also in Pittsburgh. And that's one of the reasons that I thought, you might see that changing of the guard with those teams respectively. And there's a lot of fanfare. There's a lot of reports, a lot of smoke. And a lot of times where there's smoke, there's typically fire. And all I would caution the um, Ravens fans, I would caution in this regard, right? Don't get don't overlook the fact that a lot rides on tomorrow's game with the franchise quarterback Lamar Jackson and also Harbaugh. Like, let's not gloss over that, okay? Let's just not gloss over that at all. And that's something that I know Lloyd and I will talk about at great length. I believe even though, you're hearing out of Baltimore, Lamar Jackson comes out and he basically says, "Hey man, I've never quit on the Ravens." He's basically he's saying, "Look, I'm in it to win it. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be available. I'm giving you exactly what you need. I'm going to play. I'm all in." And that's good. He's got to fire back at some of the critics. I would never question a player's toughness, right? You can question a player's commitment. You can certainly do that. Toughness in the NFL, it's a gladiator sport. It's a warrior mentality. That's tough to do. So Jackson is going to be out there. Now, if you're 100%, then you got to give me 100%. I need to see that MVP level Lamar Jackson. And I believe that you have two head coaches in Harbaugh and in Tomlin that it would not shock and or surprise me if the loser of this game coach wise decided either he's going to resign, take a year off. I don't see either getting fired. I think it's more likely that the Ravens, if Lamar Jackson plays poorly, as much as you guys have pushed back with this, I believe there's a thought in the offseason, okay, can we move Lamar Jackson? Does Harbaugh turn around and say, it's a rift that we can't mend? And I don't want to do this anymore after 17, 18 years. I don't know. I really don't know. I believe it's more likely that this is the end of Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh than Harbaugh in Baltimore. I really do. I believe if you really think about this, those two have been linked for the past 15 plus 16, 17 years, right? I believe it's more likely if Pittsburgh loses, Mike Tomlin's either forced out or takes a year off. If Baltimore loses, I still think John Harbaugh is safe. And I know people can sit there and say, look, they're not getting fired. They're not getting fired. Well, you know what? Every coach in every city says that same thing until you start losing football games. And I think there's a lot riding. And this is, to me, I mean, I can't recall where you might really see an overhaul. This could be potentially Aaron Rodgers' last game in the NFL as a quarterback. This could be the last game Lamar Jackson's career with Baltimore. And I know people, again, you guys have been pushing back. There's no way, there's not a snowball's chance in hell that the Ravens move on from Lamar Jackson. Let's see how it plays out. So there's a lot on the table when it comes to these two teams and these coaches. All right, just cranking it up on a Saturday edition of On Q, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase. Get in on X at Rich Q. Quick timeout. We're going to come back on the other side. In about 10 minutes, we'll hear from Lloyd Vance. Got a lot of comments coming in already on a Saturday. You guys are fantastic. If you like the content, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. We'll go through these games. I'll continue my conversation and my thoughts on Baltimore and Pittsburgh. We'll get into a monster contest tonight between San Francisco and Seattle. A lot at stake for week 18 in the NFL, and it's exactly how they wanted it. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. All right, 1:30 on a Saturday afternoon, as I mentioned, a little power hour of On Cue. And again, I'm not here if it's not for you guys. You guys have been fantastic with the comments, the engagement, the likes, the banter, subbing to the channel. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. I told you, we go heavy during the NFL season. We go heavy. Let's get some comments. We'll wait to hear from Lloyd Vance and a couple. Madman chimes in, banker hours. No, absolutely not. You know it, and I know it. New headphones, who it is, aka Heat 12 Man, aka Heisman, aka Duval, aka Vince. Q on a weekend. What's going on? Are you being threatened? Blink twice if you're a hostage in need of a rescue. Oh no, I'm telling you guys, you guys let me come on and every week, Monday to Friday, and then on the Saturdays, we try to give you some content and keep it a little light and with a lot of the NFL, so many games and a lot to get into. Uh, listen, you guys keep me going, man. So I greatly appreciate it. Sarge chimes in. I remember you used to do the Saturday afternoon in the zone on 1290 The Ticket. What do we got here? A little merger. Sarge, always good to hear from you, brother. Yeah, that was a in the zone with Q, and then we used to do the Saturday edition. No, Mark and Wallingford. Q, I know you're going to talk a little more about the Philadelphia Eagles, but did you see the Rams are going to go all in on Sunday? Yes, I saw that. Yep, I saw that. I mean, McVay is going to play the starters regardless of the seeding. And I don't have a problem with that. Bills are going to start Josh Allen, get a couple of reps against the Jets, get up 17-3, and then kind of coast from there. Let me see. Pittsburgh Pat chimes in. Wow, I haven't heard from him. He actually lives in Kettering, Ohio. Q, I know you've been harping on this for about a year plus right now. I still don't believe it until I see it. Even if Pittsburgh loses, I don't see them making a change from Mike Tomlin. That is going to be the story. That is going to be the story. That's Imagine this for a minute. Like, here's the scenario. Here's the scenario, right? You've got two head coaches that have been lockstep and barrel for 17 plus years as rivals in the AFC North. They both had success early on. They both won Super Bowls early on. They've also had a lot of playoff failure, but they've also won a lot of games. And you can make an argument they're both Hall of Fame head coaches. Every Hall of Fame every Hall of Fame head coach in the NFL, or head coach for that matter, that is good to very good, they've all had a shelf life. It's very rare that a head coach can turn around and go out a winner. It's very rare. Not everyone can sit there in 88 when it's Montana to Taylor and they beat Cincinnati and the GOAT Brent Musburger's up there with one of the other GOATs, Bill Walsh, have you coach your last game with the 49ers. And then obviously Walsh tried his hand in college. It's rare. It is rare that you get to go out on top. It is just like a player. Not everyone can go out like the Mannings or the Elways of the world. It does not happen. The same could be said with the coaches. Andy Reid had a shelf life with the Philadelphia Eagles. Tom Coughlin, who won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants, had a shelf life. Cowher had a shelf life. Shula had a shelf life. Even though, Shula's one of the all-time greats, and we knew he wanted to get that record and then go out on his own terms. But again, these coaches have shelf lives. They do. And I'm not talking about Shula, early in his career when he was then with Washington and the Colts and then Cleveland, right? I mean, he coached the Miami Dolphins from 70 to 95. But prior to that, what did he do? He was head coach for a couple years with the Baltimore Colts. And, Don Shula, rest his soul, if he were alive, the question that was asked a lot of times is, do you regret going to Johnny Unitas so late in Super Bowl III because Earl Morrall was struggling? That's probably one of his biggest regrets. But even Shula, the GOAT, Mount Rushmore, they all have shelf lives. So what makes a Harbaugh and or a Tomlin different? What makes them different? And that's apples and oranges to the head coaches that I was just mentioning and talking about, period. Absolutely, period. Sal chimes in, QQ, please, enough of the nonsense. Lamar Jackson's not going anywhere. Okay. All right, we'll see how it plays out. Lamar Jackson, I give him credit. Lamar Jackson fired back at the critics, right? Because I think Lamar Jackson is getting annoyed. I think Lamar Jackson, there's probably his inner circle telling him, yo, man, you know what? Suck it up. You got to be out there. And he knows he's got to be out there. He's a multiple time MVP. He's a franchise quarterback with the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson is not missing a win and in game. He's not, because that would be a reprimand on his career. There's absolutely no chance in hell with the season on the line that Lamar Jackson is not going to play. You know it, and I know it, right? I mean, think about it. You know it, and I know it. And by the way, that's a good job by the Ravens. They gave that nose tackle Jenkins his first extension. I think he's like a 12, 13-year vet. But Lamar Jackson's going to be out there. It's just a question of how effective is he going to be. And listen, I believe the Baltimore Ravens, you've got a very good quarterback in Lamar Jackson, but I also believe there is a disconnect. And we see it sometimes with head coach to quarterback. We've seen it. You can be successful, but then there can be a rift, and one has to go. We've seen it a lot in the NFL over the years. Quarterback doesn't get along with the head coach. Head coach is like, you know what? I need my guy. No one's saying or suggesting or speculating Lamar Jackson, is quitting on the Ravens. No one's saying that. Guy's going to go out there banged up, battered and bruised, and he's going to give you his best effort, as he should. The money he makes, the position he plays, you got to be out there. You got to be out there. If you're 100%, go out there. But I need that 20 of 28, 265, 2 touchdowns, 8 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Give me that vintage Lamar Jackson game, which we see in September and October. That'll shut me up. But to Sal's point, you guys want to keep driving home this idea that Lamar Jackson is untouchable. Why? Because he has a no trade clause? I'm telling you right now, if the Baltimore Ravens spit the bit and he struggles, the one thing about Lamar Jackson that we cannot gloss over, just like Joe Burrow, they're injury prone. Those quarterbacks, the Burrows of the world, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, Tua getting concussed, Daniel Jones was all his injuries. They're injury prone quarterbacks. So when I have $150, $200, $250 investment of a franchise quarterback, I need you to be out there. Period. Lamar Jackson, going back to when the NFL was 16 games, played 16 games his rookie season, missed a couple games 2019, couple games 2020, couple games 2021, couple games 2022, played 17 full, and he's already missed 4 games this season. That's injury prone. Even, accessibility, availability, whether it's a game here or there, I know it's nitpicking. It's just how it is in the NFL. He's a great quarterback. The Jets need a quarterback. The Raiders need a quarterback. Sometimes quarterbacks also want a change of scenery. Just because they have a no trade clause, that does not mean if they're looking around saying, you know what, maybe this could be the best fit for me. John Bueller brought up a really interesting point. He doesn't want to play in that stadium. Well, okay, in New York and MetLife, I get it. It's a house of horrors. But how about in Vegas? Like, you can't dismiss anything. You don't have to agree with me. You can push back. But I'm not trying to, these are not foolish, hot takes. We're not oven mitting here on a Saturday. We're not. I'm just telling you what I believe. And I believe that there is no quarterback in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes coming off a major, major injury. You want to give me that 1 or 2, the Brady's in his prime, the Peyton Mannings, but even the great ones, franchises move on to. New England and Brady, Indianapolis and Peyton Manning. Even the great ones sometimes succeed when they have a change of scenery. We want, we're kids at heart. We want them to finish their careers with the uniforms and the teams that we follow. It doesn't always happen. And you know how the NFL is now. It is a win-win-win, right? Win-win-win. And I'm telling you, even if you have a no trade clause, it does not matter. He can turn around and sit there and say, okay, I'll go. I'll lift it. Players have done that before. No trade clause. It's smoke and mirrors. It's smoke and mirrors. It's smoke and mirrors. All it is basically a provision in your contract. You can veto any trade. That's what that means. So yeah, you have control over your destination, but if somebody turns around and they're like, "Hey man, this is your best fit," and they're going to restructure your contract, then you can be open to it. No trade clause. I think it's the most overrated thing in sports, because I can veto a trade, sure, to certain teams, but it's also worked into contract extension and free agent contracts as well. Those are perks for players signing certain deals. And if Harbaugh stays and Baltimore flutters and Lamar Jackson plays poorly, there's a rift going on within the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know what the dynamic is, but there is a rift. And you guys know this as much as I do. What happens in the offseason? What happens in the offseason with some of these players? They're doing a memorabilia signing. They're doing an appearance, and somebody sticks a microphone or camera in front of their face, and all they do is say that one thing. Yeah, man, it was a really taxing year, and I don't really know the direction that the franchise is going. Do I want to be here long term? Sure, I want to be here. I mean, Embiid's notorious for doing that, right? And then all of a sudden we take that, stick it under the microscope, and we run with it. QE has no trade, his choice, regardless of what the team thinks, unless you're saying they're going to cut him too. No, I'm saying that if the New York Jets turned around and they said, they picked up the phone and they called the Baltimore Ravens, right? And we know the Jets have a substantial amount of equity. It's a substantial amount of equity. And they said, listen, I know Lamar has a no trade clause, but we're willing to offer you XXX, right? And Mike Preston, if you go back, I think a week or two ago, said that the Ravens have concerns about his durability, speaking of Lamar Jackson, and his maturity, which again, when you start to hear that, it's like when everyone said, and I'm not comparing the two, there's no way in hell the Philadelphia Eagles will move on from Carson Wentz. That's all I heard. That's all I heard. I was arguing with my friends. I was arguing on the air when everyone, there's no way, the money they gave on the contract extension. No, 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 no. Okay. What happened? So you go back to 2019. They exercise his fifth-year option. They sign him to a 4-year, $128 million contract. He got $107 million guaranteed, which basically we're going to keep you under contract through 2024. Okay? So you go to the 2020 season, right? Think about this. Go to the 2020 season. He battled some injuries. He got benched. He didn't play particularly well. What happened the following year? What happened in 2021? They traded him. And they traded him for what? Carson Wentz was traded to the Colts for a 2021 third round pick, a 2022 first round pick. Now, I'm not talking about, well, what did he have a no trade? And I'm saying that players, if you really want to get rid of the player, you will find a way to get rid of the player. You will get rid of the player. And that's why him playing this weekend was absolutely, it's huge, because it's showing his commitment to the franchise, that he's tough, that he wants to be out there. Now, again, if he struggles, or say he gets banged up and God forbid gets hurt and has to come out of the game, that is going to be a major talking point going forward. It really is. The non-draft market is not appealing. Some of these teams, the Raiders and the Jets, can ill afford to have a bridge quarterback. So there's flexibility. There's flexibility is my point. There's flexibility. It could be a steep price, and it's only speculation. And that's if Lamar Jackson comes, maybe, he's got his come to Jesus moment. He's like, they don't want me here anymore. I'm tired of it. They keep questioning my durability. They keep questioning my maturity. You know what? I'll lift that. I don't have a problem. The Jets want it, fine. I'll go play in New York. That's all I'm saying. Let's not, be so And I'm not saying you per se or you guys out there, but narrow-minded and thinking players don't get moved. If you really, 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 really want to move a player, you can find a way to move a player. So you think he would okay trade from one of the best franchises in sports, arguably one of the worst? Make it make sense, Q. If he does accept a trade, it would be only with a contender. Well, the Baltimore Ravens, they're not one of the best franchises in sports. Sorry, they're not. They're not anymore. They're really not. I know, I mean, there's been conversations about the GM, how they put together the roster, how they've assembled it. Some of the moves that Harbaugh has made in the past with his coaching staff. They're a solid organization, yeah, but they're not. I'm not going to put them on the level of say what the Eagles are. I mean, that's an open ended. That's kind of a subjective comment right there, and it's not even about making it make sense. Sometimes players realize they can only go so far with an organization. And sometimes organizations realize I can only go so far with you. I think the best bet, the moment the Jets had an opportunity to get Lamar Jackson was a couple seasons ago. They dropped the ball on that. They dropped the ball on that. Now, again, though, think about it. You're playing in the AFC North, right? Cincinnati still has Burrow. The players are backing Zach Taylor. It seems as though he's going to come back. Cleveland's a young team. There are reports. Uh, uh, Rossini's reporting that Barry is pretty much going to be safe, and there's strong speculation that Kevin Stefanski is going to get fired come Monday. That the Browns will move on from Stefanski, and then you got Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin. So if you're telling me, well, they can win a lot of games if they figure it out in the AFC North with Baltimore, true, 100%, 100%. Then you look at the AFC East, and again, AFC West with the Raiders, AFC East, the Jets. It would be interesting because you would come in and be that dynamic quarterback that team, that franchise has not happened, has not had. And they do have some weapons. They do. I'm not, the Jets are a bad football team. They're a horrible football team, but you're right. You have to weigh the risk to reward. Like if Lamar Jackson said, yeah, I'll do it. Well, maybe Lamar Jackson, and again, I can't speak for him. Maybe the player's like, man, can you imagine if I went to New York and won a Super Bowl with the Jets? I'd be the toast of the NFL. I'd be the toast of the town. Put my bust right up there. Let's go. They're a bad franchise. They've been for so long, but we don't know what's going on within the locker room. There's dynamics that no one is privy to. I remember the issues with Donovan. I remember the friction late with Donovan and Andy Reid and Donovan and T.O. And I remember being in those locker rooms and you just felt it. You felt it. And I also recall going on the air at the time, and I still have that soundbite going on the air in Florida. And somebody said, what do you think about McNabb? I said, I'll give you two teams he might be traded to. One of them was Washington. The other was Pittsburgh. The host laughed me off the air. I got that clip. I played it on the air. And where'd he get traded to? He got traded to Washington. You're talking about a franchise quarterback. Your franchise quarterback. We're not going to move this guy. Guys get traded. Guys get moved. It's part of sports. It's a major opportunity for him to go out, bad back and all, and basically, will the Ravens into the playoffs. And if the Ravens are smart, like I told you, run the friggin' football 25 to 30 times with Derrick Henry. Run it. Run it. Run it. Maddie chimes in Q. Huge test for my Seahawks tonight. Yes, for Seattle and San Francisco. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. It really is. You got two really good quarterbacks. Brock Purdy has been playing at a lights out high level. Purdy, look, he's going to throw a pick here and there. It happens. It's just who he is. He's kind of good for a pick six. It happens. I know you guys, 49ers fans, it drives you crazy. But I think we might get an old-fashioned shootout tonight between Seattle and San Francisco. I also, if this is the night where, if you really haven't paid attention, and I don't know if you've been living on a rock over the last several years, but if you haven't paid attention, Christian McCaffrey is one of the best players in the NFL. He's one of the best players in the NFL. And now you've got an opportunity to see him probably get 25 to 28 touches tonight. 25-28. Catching the ball at a backfield, screen passes, wheel routes, have them in the slot. I love this matchup. I really do. Because I want to see how that San Francisco 49ers offense can match up against that Seattle defense. I mean, we're talking about, the path to victory for these teams, right? The path to victory. And I think at this moment, you've got the Seahawks coming into this game, right? First place, NFC West, 6-game winning streak. Obviously, a win or a tie locks them up for the top spot in the division and the conference. They are 14-2 on the road since 2024 under Mike McDonald. The 49ers come in. They're hot. They won 6 straight as well. And a 7th basically pulls them even with Seattle overall record. That would claim the NFC West. They'd win the division and they would get the number 1 seed because they already beat Seattle earlier this season. So they would be 2-0 in head-to-head. And to me, the Seahawks have quietly started to emerge in the NFL as when we were talking about the Rams a couple weeks ago. The Rams are the most complete team in the NFL, and now all of a sudden we're seeing a little bit of cracks in the armor with the Los Angeles Rams. Seattle, to me, is one of the most complete teams. They've got the second best scoring defense in the NFL, which tells me they're opportunistic, which tells me Brock Purdy, ball security has to be paramount tonight. It's got, corners and DB start jumping routes and it's a pick six heaven. Seattle's going to blow them out of the building. Seattle's going to blow them out, right? So ball security is paramount, period, for the San Francisco 49ers. They can ill afford to give up short field, give the ball back. They got to convert on third down. You want to keep that Seattle offense off the field because Darnold distributes the football all over the place. He really does. He does a hell of a job getting in players that you probably never even heard of. And is Seattle going to turn around and stack the box and the 49ers going to try to keep them honest with the ground game? I mean, it's just, there's a game within the game, man. It really is. I mean, it's the game. The 49ers offense has been absolutely fire. Fire. 6 games, 6 straight wins. If you go back to really the 3 games since they returned, they got the bye in week 14. Now, granted, Titans and Colts, but the Bears, fine. They put up at least 430 yards, 28 first downs, 37 points in each game. They're averaging 455 yards, 29.3 first downs, 42.3 points per week during those contests. Now, they struggled to get those big-time explosive plays down the field against Seattle, but they still put up almost 400 yards, 24 first downs. They only scored 17 because they also turned the ball over several times. And speaking of opportunistic, Purdy will turn it over. Darnold, here's the thing, right? The bugaboo, my guy, slinging Sammy Darnold. He's leading the NFL in turnovers this season. 14 interceptions. Well, I should say giveaways. 14 picks, and he's fumbled 10 times. And he's lost 6 of them. So depending upon, the weather, the conditions, that's something to kind of monitor right now. I mean, it's going to be 56, 57. I don't know if it's going to be rain. I don't know if it's going to be cold and nasty old school 49er football. But this game to me is going to be a monster contest. Ball security, converting third downs, getting the opposition off the field, and the X factor, it's got to be CMC. It really does. I mean, his numbers are staggering. If Darnold, well, I should say if Stafford, if Drake May, if, Lawrence, if Stafford, if they weren't having the kind of season, Josh Allen, the kind of seasons that they are, you would really make a strong case for Christian McCaffrey MVP because everything centers through that offense. That 49ers offense, you've got to kind of pick and choose, wheel route, flat, slant, handoff, back position. He's going to chip. You can get him down the field. The numbers are staggering. There have only been 4 seasons in NFL history where a player has run for over 1,000 yards and he's caught at least 100 passes. Christian McCaffrey is responsible for 2 of those. He did it in 2018, 2019. Now, he needs a little help tonight. He's going to need about 4 or 5 catches for $110 to get 1,000, which is just unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. And if you go back to the first game that the 49ers won earlier in the season, they were not really rolling at the right time, right? And now they are. And it I've been wavering with this game. I think Seattle, you do not want to play them on the road come January in the playoffs. You don't. The 49ers offense has been more explosive over the last month of the season than Seattle's offense. And as much as I talk about Purdy will give it up, I can see a scenario in this game where, let's just say, it's a 24-20 game, late third quarter, right? And now all of a sudden the defense is, you got the adjustments they're figuring out. I can see San Francisco being a little more aggressive against Darnold. I can see some of these guys cheating a little bit. And if you are getting Seattle in third and long, that's telling me too, they're not able to run the football. And that's kind of where I want to put them. Third and long. I want to put a little more pressure on Darnold. Look, if I can shut down Walker, I know I got to figure out a way to slow down JSN, right? You've got the veteran in there in Cup as well. They've got some players, no doubt. Shaheed, they've got players, right? Or no, he's not playing. I'm sorry. Or maybe he is. But you know what I'm saying. They've got very good skill position players, right? They got, good running backs, multiple running backs. But if I'm stopping the run and now all of a sudden it's a 2nd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, or I sack you for a loss, 3rd and 13, that plays right in the 49ers' hands. That's where I think Darnold will make that mistake. And that's where I think San Fran could be a little more aggressive when it comes to their pass rush. So we're going late third quarter, 24-20. They get that turnover. They bring it back the other way, 31-20. The clamps are down right now. And that's a tough ask for Seattle. I've been going back and forth in this game, but I'm going to lean towards San Francisco at home because of their offense. And I get it. Great defense against great offense. I can't recall a stretch. Jacksonville's kind of in that mold over the last 3-4 weeks. 49ers, 41-20, 28, 37, 46, 42 points. I mean, they're rolling right now. They're rolling. And I didn't even mention, Kittle's questionable with the ankle injury. He's going to play. So that opens up that offense that much more. But I do like the 49ers tonight. And I know I've kind of been flippy-floppy, and I don't like to do that. Michael chimes in. Broncos country. Let's ride. Man chimes in. This is my take on the 8 p.m. game. It's better to have a hot defense than a hot offense. The offense usually dies out before the defense will. Interesting point from a objective Niners fan who is clearly reading the room. True, but I also think you're saying that because you're a little worried about Purdy. I think you're a little hesitant. You're a little weary about Purdy. Maybe again, 3rd and long, he forces the issue. You can't turn the football over. I know it's football 101, and I'm not trying to give you the lazy take, but if we're on the air Sunday or Monday and the 49ers turned it over 3-4 times and Purdy was a product of 2 picks and McCaffrey had a fumble, they're not winning the football game. I also think 3rd downs are going to be huge, 3rd down opportunities. And if the game's tight, which head coach do you trust in the 4th quarter? Which head coach do you trust in the 4th quarter? Seattle's offense was extremely explosive at spurts this season. Now, the last 3 games, ugly game against the Colts because they were able to shut down their ground game. They exploded for 8 against the Rams in a game they should have lost. And then they came back and they beat the Panthers by 17. They pulled away. And that's in spite of the fact that they turned the ball over. Remember those back-to-back possessions? Darnold turned it over. It was tip picks. And then Bryce Young had to fumble. And then, so that was an ugly game. I'm going to give the edge to the 49ers tonight. I'm going to give the edge to the 49ers. At home, it's going to be a hell of a game. CMC, your current leader for the MVP. No, it's Drake May. It's Drake May. Drake May It was Matthew Stafford, but it's Drake May. You're talking about a second-year quarterback winning the division, you know, uh, and putting up monster numbers. And again, if we're being fair, think about the weapons that Drake May has. So Henderson's a nice back, not a great back. Diggs, well, that's an issue for another day. He's got a good tight end. You know, you got a veteran guy in Hollins. Um, to me, Drake May has elevated the play of his offense. And I think if you go back a couple weeks ago, Michael, if you think about the game against Baltimore, he threw for 380. Prior to that, against Buffalo, that game really could have solidified the MVP for him because, again, you're up 21 to nothing. You're up 21 points, but he played poorly in that game. But then he bounces back on the road against Baltimore, and then he turns around. Now, if you sit there and say, well, he beat the Jets, I get it, but you can't blame him for playing the Jets. You can't blame him for having Jets in Miami on the schedule in the AFC East, but he throws for 5 touchdown passes. He's thrown for 30 touchdown passes, 8 picks. 3 of them have come over the last month of the season. There was a stretch where he didn't turn the football over at all. He's also added 4 rushing touchdowns. So he's accounted, if you're looking totals right now, 4,600 total yards, 34 touchdowns, and 8 picks. Like, to me, second-year quarterback, that jump, the progressions that we always talk about in the NFL, he's taken them. He's taken them. He went from playing in 13 games last season, 2,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, 10 picks. He's doubled his touchdowns and basically cut down his interceptions. And he's been sacked more times this year. Right now, it's May. If May doesn't have the season that he has, Stafford doesn't have the season that he has, Allen doesn't have the season that he has, Trevor Lawrence, then Christian McCaffrey and or Trevor Lawrence might be in the conversation. It's amazing what Christian McCaffrey does. It really is. I need the real Darnold to finally show up tonight. You need the Darnold that went into Detroit Sunday Night Football and stunk up the joint last year. That's what you need. San Fran could possibly become the weakest number 1 seed in NFL history. I don't really, I don't really think that's a fair statement to make, to be quite honest. Because I feel as though you're kind of slighting what the 49ers have done this season. Like, what are we comparing it to? You have to be a good football team to get the number 1 seed. You do. You have to be a good football team. Like, I can't sit here and say, well, okay, is the NFL, is it down this season? Yeah, it is. It's down. It's down this season. Go look at the NFC South. But the NFC West is a hell of a division, man. It's a hell of a division. Like, give San Fran a little more credit. They're 4-1 in the division. That arguably, that division has 3 teams with 11 or more wins. That's absurd. I can't even recall a division that's ever been laid out like that before. Chicago's won 11. The Eagles won 11. Green Bay, they might get their 10th win. Dallas can't. Then you look at the NFC South. That winner might lose 9 games. And then you go over to the AFC side. It's not a juggernaut. It isn't. I can tell you this. The Giants in 2000, the New York Giants in 2000 were 12-4. They were not a legit top seed. They weren't. They weren't. They were 5-2. Then they came off their bye. They beat the Eagles. They beat Cleveland. They beat up the Cleveland Browns. They were 7-2. They lost 2 games. They got embarrassed by Detroit, and that's when Fossil had the guarantee. And then, they played so-so football. They had a close game against Dallas. They had a close game against Jacksonville. Seahorn returned an onside kick late for the touchdown. Then they pulled away from the Eagles in the divisional round. Now, the NFC Championship was Kerry Collins' day. There's a reporter years ago that went on record, said he thought the Giants were going to win that game 44-0. He thought they were going to dominate Minnesota. They won 41-0. Collins was unbelievable. And then they got destroyed in the Super Bowl. That, to me, that team was not a juggernaut. And This is the craziest thing in the world. Imagine being privy to this information prior to. The Giants were a 1-point dog at home for the NFC Championship. The over and under, the total in that championship game was 41 and a half points. They shut out Minnesota 41 to nothing, and they were a 1-point dog at home. They were a weak number 1 seed. San Fran is not a weak number 1 seed. They aren't. They aren't. Now, imagine if they were also at full strength. Come on. Got to be honest, it would be nice to see Darnold overcome the rap that we're giving him. We're not being able to get it done. He deserves that win for sure. No hate. Oh, a little reverse spite pick mush by new headphone Who Dis, Vince. I like Darnold, but everyone's waiting for the other shoe to drop. Let's not forget to mention 2 amazing head coaches about to square off. Let the chess match begin. Yes, and a head coach that I thought was on the hot seat in August. Right. Yeah. It's McCaffrey. Come on. That's what I say. McCaffrey. Hi, Nauska. What are you doing? I got some good rhythm. I got a lot of comments coming in. And all of a sudden you're reading the room. I'm giving the proper pronunciation. I don't need Vince to sit there and correct me. CMC. What are we talking about here? Come on, man. I never once said a T. It's McCaffrey, right? Like Easy Ed. Jeez, man, read the room. Unbelievable. On a Saturday, getting friggin' annoyed by this guy. Jeez. Let's take it easy on Q. He went to New York City public schools. Can't expect too much from him. Whoa, whoa, whoa! I did not. See, that's fake news. That's not right. That's fake news. That's absolutely not right. Unbelievable. That's not right at all. Billy chimes in. Here we go. All right, Bill. Appreciate that. Little contribution to the show. And Vince, that's not really nice, to be quite honest with you. That's I would expect that shot from the Bunker Boys. Sally chimes in, QQQ, I'm laughing, but let's be honest. Who do you take tomorrow? Ravens or the Steelers? I told you, run the ball. It's Derrick Henry. That's a Derrick Henry game tomorrow night or tomorrow. It has to be. And if Harbaugh doesn't give him 25 to 30 touches, I don't want to hear how the game's going to get dictated. I don't understand. I just ride Derrick Henry downhill, take pressure off Lamar Jackson, ride him downhill. Ride him downhill. Baltimore will go into Pittsburgh and will beat the Steelers. And the other side, the flip side to that, is that it could be Mike Tomlin's last game. It could be Aaron Rodgers' last game. Now, come Monday, I'm going to tell you the heads that'll roll. The Raiders, they will part ways with Pete Carroll. Depending upon how Cleveland plays tomorrow, let's just say Sanders plays well, Cleveland's defense is making plays, Garrett breaks a sack record. There's going to be this talk in the offseason, okay, run it back with Shador, okay? But if you go and you listen to Myles Garrett's comments about, well, we're not looking to tank, I'm looking to play, we want to build, I don't care who's basically at the helm, to paraphrase, that's kind of telling me he doesn't really care if Stefanski comes back or not. I think at this moment, they waited too long to start Shador Sanders. I'm not saying they would have won more games. I think the dynamic in Cleveland is worse off than what it is in Baltimore. It's not as bad as with the Jets, but you're talking about a poorly run franchise. They have no idea what the hell they're doing. Now, Stefanski's a very good offensive coordinator. He will land on his feet. But I can see if Cleveland loses this game, Stefanski's going to be out. I think if they win this game and Sanders plays well, the other question will be answered. Can you build around Shador Sanders with the right head coach? Barry, I'm more inclined to think he's likely to stay. Bowles and Light, I think they're going to stay in Tampa, even if they miss the playoffs. You've got the 3 highest paid players, offensive players on Cincinnati, Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, and they continue to voice support for Zach Taylor. So we shall see. All right, let me get into a A couple more comments. Billy chimes in, shutting down Derrick Henry. Ooh, I'll tell you what, brother, he's been running the ball really well of late. He has been running the ball really well. See, Derrick Henry, the thing is, you got to force feed him the football early. And Derrick Henry's kind of got that, that Saquon-ish where, you pound the rock, you pound the rock, you pound the rock. He's going to break it free. And listen, the other thing is if you stack the box, if the Steelers stack the box, I still think there's a threat right now with this offense where they can open up, meaning Baltimore's offense. I mean, if you go position player to position player, right? Still got Zay Flowers. You've got Hopkins. You've got Andrews, Lamar Jackson. This could also be the game where even if the Steelers are shutting down Henry a little bit, Lamar Jackson's got to have that clock go off and all of a sudden decide, I'm going to pull the ball down and I'm going to run with it. And that's when I was saying before, you kind of need that. If you're a Ravens fan, you want that vintage Lamar Jackson game. I need the 6, 7, 8 carries for 43, 45 yards. Now, he ran for 43 yards a couple weeks ago against the Steelers, and he had to pick. He was efficient, but he didn't throw for a lot of yards when they lost that game 27-22. And I hated the play calling. They were able to slow down Henry. Henry still had almost 100 yards in that game, and they averaged 5.4 yards a carry. And then conversely, for you Steelers fans out there, and I would like to get a Steelers thought on this one. I would like to get a Steelers thought on this one because obviously Billy is a Steelers fan. The loss of DK Metcalf has greatly affected this offense. Greatly affected this offense. Let me squeeze in one more comment. I got a lot more, and then I think my guy Lloyd's here for a couple moments. Vince chimes in, to me, this is the toughest coach of the year race ever. You have Shanahan doing wonders with Band-Aids, Cohen and Johnson making their quarterbacks elite, Vrabel raising his team from the dead. Sure, you got Canales in Carolina as well, right? I mean, you got McVay with the Rams too. I mean, listen, you've got a lot of consideration for some of these guys when we're talking about head coach of the year. A lot of these head coaches are worthy. Wow, we got a lot of comments on X. I got to get to them as well, which we will. Let me take a quick time out. We're going to punch up. How about this? My guy Lloyd Vance on the other side. We're going to punch him up. He was having some nice little cocktails on vacation, but he's kind enough to join me for a couple minutes. Quick time out. We'll come back on the other side. Get Saturday edition of On Cue, powered by good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. We got the finger wag already. How about this? He's back from vacation. He's trying to get the family situated. He's probably jet lagged a little bit. The wife's probably barking at him right now that there's stuff that it has to get done in the house. But he's kind enough to join me for a couple moments. Our good friend Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, SR 1029 FM The Game. Good to see you, my friend. How was your trip?
Doing good, Q. What's going on, man? How's it been?
Everything is everything. I just need to know, was the weather nice?
It was. It was. It was warm down there. You had some nice snow here.
Yeah, you don't have to remind me. Well, we were just getting into a little bit of the Saturday action. Obviously, you've got Carolina and Tampa. We'll maybe gloss over that game. I really want to dive into tomorrow, AFC North, and obviously what's going on with the top seeds there and San Fran and Seattle. Let's kind of gloss over that Tampa Bay Carolina game. I do believe Carolina goes on the road and they beat Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay's leaking way too much oil. We talked about some of these coaches in the past on the hot seat. It looks like Bowles is going to be safe for now, even if they miss the playoffs. It's a bad division. It's like, okay, what team can kind of grab it? And Carolina over the last 10 weeks, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. But I do like Bryce Young. They've kept him upright. I think they're going to be able to run the football. And I know it's a tall order, but I believe they go on the road and they beat the Bucs.
It's going to be an interesting one, Q, because you have, Bryce Young has not played well on the road, so this is a big situation for him where he's got to step up here. And Tampa Bay is getting healthy at the right time. They got McMillan back last week. He had that huge game. Obviously, as you said, trying to save Todd Bowles' job, or we'll see if he's going to survive everything. But divisional battle, and like anything, you're like, all right, who's healthy, who's not? All these teams put these guys on IR and
Yeah.
bring guys from practice squad. So, but this is a game that matters. Ted McMillan, last week did not play particularly well for the Panthers, and had only had one catch. I think the Bucs are going to find a way to win this one. I just think it's just veteran leadership. Don't forget about Baker Mayfield. He's starting to play, getting rapport with some guys. He still has Mike Evans, and this may be one of his last games for the Bucs. So I'm going to go with the Bucs in a close one here.
All right, and then obviously tonight, home field advantage, a lot on the line. Everyone kind of is weighing in, going back and forth with me when you talk about would you rather have that hot defense or that hot offense? And we know Seattle has a very good defense. They're an extremely complete team, but we look at offensively what the 49ers have been able to do over the last month or so of the season. Purdy playing at a high level. Kittles should be out there. CMC, McCaffrey, a dark horse MVP candidate. You got him all over the place on the field. That is a nightmare when we're talking about matching up. I've been back and forth because, I'm a Darnold fan. Uh, I'm worried that if this is a close game, mid to late third quarter, after adjustments have been made by two very good head coaches, the third and long would worry me. If the 49ers can get Seattle in these third and long, third and long, third and long, I think then that is going to be an issue. And I'll tell you, I'm leaning towards San Francisco at home, and just figuring out a way. We'll slow down that Seattle offense. We'll turn the ball over. We'll turn Sam Darnold over a couple times, and it's just my gut says San Francisco.
It's all about your boy Sam Darnold, and he's going against one of his old teams, and it's a situation where Shanahan has really pieced this thing together with winners and these guys on defense. Him and Robert Salah have done a great job in terms of turning that defense into something in particular. When it comes to all the injuries they had with Bosa and Warner being out, but
Mm-hmm.
and Purdy's playing so well, Q, since he came back. He's closed all the Mac Jones naysayers out there. As I would say, okay, put him in there, and
That was me.
but ugh, I've been back. This is a tight one. I've been back and forth on this game now, and the thing is, Kenneth Walker's got to play a lot better than he did last week. They got to get him and Charbonnet going. JSN's having one of those great seasons. Barner playing well. I think that when you saw, in overtime, the 2-point conversion for Sam Darnold may have turned the page. So I'm going to pull a surprise here. I'm going with Seattle. I think Seattle's going to find a way to win this game, and I just think it's because of all the talent on this roster and how banged up the 49ers are at this point in the season.
They are banged up. It speaks to how well the coach kept it together. Uh, Purdy, to me, you can't turn the ball over. We know that Seattle's opportunistic, but we also know that the 49ers have been putting up a lot of points, right? So it's like that very good pitcher, the ace pitcher against a red hot offense. And a lot of people will take pitching over the offense. And it seems as though you're leaning towards defense over the offense. How about tomorrow, AFC North, the Steelers and the Ravens? Now, I know you're on vacation. I've talked about this almost ad nauseum, which probably were driving a lot of the viewing audience crazy. AFC North, Baltimore, Steelers, Rodgers, Tomlin, Harbaugh, Jackson. I believe the loser of this game, their franchise can go in a completely different direction. So let's just say Pittsburgh for a moment. First of all, it's pretty evident not having DK Metcalf has hurt this offense. Um, big time. I mean, even you go to last week's game against Cleveland, Nance and Romo decide to mention DK Metcalf the last series of the game. Like, you don't have your playmaker, right? You don't have your big red zone target. Um, I'm looking at Tomlin. I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers. Let's just, instead of talking about the game within the game, let me just say this first. If the Steelers lose this game, can you envision a scenario where They move on from Tomlin, or Tomlin decides that I'm going to step away, recharge the battery, go to the booth, and then Aaron Rodgers is like, "Well, I'm going to retire too," because I believe Aaron Rodgers has one foot out the door. Let's just say Pittsburgh loses this game. Rodgers looks old, slow, beat up, banged up. They lose it 24-10.
Well, you could say that's going to happen, but Lamar Jackson's never really won in Pittsburgh. He's had some difficulty playing there, and it's going to be a cold environment. He's coming off an injury now. Obviously, the key is going to be Derrick Henry. They're going to run him down. I
Have
mean,
to,
last
have
week,
to.
I know we didn't do game balls, but he would have been the game ball winner last week. I
Yep,
mean, he's
yep.
just been playing tremendous. That offensive line coming around, Ronnie Stanley and the guys up front finally having a good game, and then defensively Hamilton and them have to pull together. So there's another game back and forth on, and yeah, everybody's saying loser leaves town for the coach and maybe even the quarterback that loses this game. So, but I just think the Steelers are going to find a way to win this game. They're getting T.J. Watt back from the lung injury. He's going to play in this one, and they're going to probably see a lot of Warren and Gainwell in the backfield. But yeah, it's going to hurt not having DK Metcalf in this game, and they'll probably have to lean on all their tight ends. I know their big tight end from Georgia, he's out of this game. Maybe you see a lot of Freiermuth in this one, but Jackson's going to protect the football, and if he has fumbling issues or interceptions, the Steelers can turn this one. So I say Steelers winning on a Boswell field goal.
So Lamar Jackson 2-3 against the Steelers on the road in his career, 3-6 overall. Yes, he's had some bad games against the Steelers. Absolutely. I think he's pissed off. I think he had to come out and basically call out a lot of the critics, saying, "Hey, I'm not quitting on these guys. I'm going to play bad back and all." But you're right; it might not have to be that great vintage September October Lamar Jackson game. It should be the Derrick Henry kind of game. A couple Steelers fans were chiming in; they think they're going to slow down Henry. He had 94 yards, 4.3 yards a carry the first time they met a couple weeks ago. Um, he's just been running the ball angry, and you're starting to see that vintage Derrick Henry that we saw week 1 against Buffalo, but we also saw close to 2,000 yards last season. And if you're Baltimore, the game plan is pretty simple. I force feed him the ball 25 to 30 something odd times. You've got Flowers, you've got Andrews, they've got a nice complement of weapons. I also believe this is a game where you might see Lamar Jackson attack the field more, and I think he's going to use his legs too. Like, the key to me in this game is, and it is always cliche with the third down conversions, but if the Baltimore Ravens can keep the down and distance favorable, right? If they can keep it second and short, third and short, to me that plays right into their hands, because now you're taking the ball. You don't need Lamar Jackson to sling it. You can run the football. You've established a ground game. It's going to open things up. And then Pittsburgh's offense to me stinks. And I know Baltimore doesn't have the great defense, but you're asking Aaron Rodgers right now to just spread the ball around, right? And let's be honest, like, who are you spreading the ball around to, right? Metcalf suspended. You got Warren out of the backfield. You got Austin. You got Old Thielen. I mean, I just, they're running out of options here. Gainwell, you might want to play a player prop and get Gainwell, total touches and maybe an anytime touchdown. Scatling, you've already seen that him and Aaron Rodgers are not on the same page.
This is going to be interesting. And if you look at last week's results, yeah, you got to lean towards the Ravens, and they're 3.5-point road favorite, and I always say beware the home dog. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Steelers have that fight in them. Can Mike Tomlin make those adjustments? And last week, Harbaugh really seemed to learn his lesson in terms of getting Henry the football. Against Green Bay, he was just spectacular running the football downhill. And then conversely, the Steelers just looked terrible against the Browns. That's a game they need to win. They're playing a rookie quarterback, and they just couldn't.
Making the case for me.
They couldn't get it done. So you know what? I'm going to stick with my pick. I'll stick with Tomlin, and somehow he'll find a way to get it done. Particularly, I think the defense is going to have to get some turnovers in this one to help them out. But yeah, Lamar Jackson, his legs are going to be a huge factor. It's one third downs, fourth downs, and then the kicking game. So both good teams have good kickers, and I think that's going to factor in this one. The weather's going to be cold out there, so I don't expect a lot of passing down the field type situations.
All right, I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to do it right now, but I'm going to tell you right at this moment, Pittsburgh's going to win this game, and I think they're going to. I'm sorry, Baltimore's going to win this game.
I convinced you.
Baltimore is going to win this game, and I think they win this game by at least 10 to 13 points.
And maybe a situation where we come back Monday and you're like, aha, told you, Lloyd, and then
Well, I
maybe
don't want to listen. You know, I'm not one to do that, and I
no,
did not mean to say Pittsburgh. I was pulling up some notes um, on the Steelers. All right, so I, I threw this out there. I believe there's something going on. There's a disconnect within Harbaugh and Baltimore and Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. And I know he's got the no trade clause. And again, I know you're going to chuckle. It's week 18. We haven't even gone into the offseason. And again, if Baltimore loses and Lamar Jackson plays poorly, the narrative in the offseason is they can't win. They can't get over the hump with Lamar Jackson. If you're a team like the Raiders and or the Jets, that is a substantial amount of draft capital. Don't you have to pick up the phone and call Baltimore and say, look, what's it going to take to get this guy? Even though we know he's got a no trade clause, which you and I know at the end of the day means nothing.
yeah, and we know Q that where there's smoke, there's fire. I know he's kind of refuted that story that came out in the Baltimore Sun, and everybody saying, "Oh, that reporter doesn't know he's talking about," etc. But there's something with this squad that's it. We talked about that way back in August. It was do or die for this team in terms of you got to get to the playoffs, you got to make a lot of noise, and everything's set up for them. Them and the Bills to finally get over the hump because let's face it, no Mahomes in this
That's right.
one, and the rest of the teams are they got good records, but they're young, and you're like, can they get it done? So, yeah, this is a huge game for them, and you have to start saying, okay, if there's problems in the locker room, is there problems with him in the meetings, not preparing the way that he needs to, and this situation may be untenable, and we know that the cost of the general manager there, Dick Cass, the president, and the Shoddy, the owner, they're in the corner of John Harbaugh. He delivered that championship, and Lamar Jackson, he's his own agent too. So sometimes you're sitting at that
I
table in
said that yesterday.
negotiations, and you hear, "Hey, look, it's a negotiation." And I remember um, Jim Solano, who is an agent that I used to know pretty well. He told me, he said, you want to be that guy at the table for. So the player doesn't have to hear the negatives about him. And I'm sure the organization's brought up, hey, guys, 3-5 in the playoffs. Can he get it done? Yeah, he's the MVP, but
But and also the durability. And that's a great point because I remember having this conversation with Joe Linta at the time, who was Joe Flacco's agent, said the same thing. Like, especially depending upon where you're coming out in the draft in college and the body of work and the resume, but absolutely not. That's why you get paid to negotiate the contract for the player. Now, the Jets had an opportunity a couple of years ago to get Lamar Jackson. Instead, they went with Aaron Rodgers, who, again, it's purely speculation, but if Pittsburgh loses, it could be Aaron Rodgers' last game in the NFL. All right, how about Cleveland? There's Rossini's reporting that it's more likely that Barry comes back and Stefanski's on his way out. I mean, barring even if they beat Cincinnati 35-10 and Sanders throws for 500 yards, you believe that Stefanski's gone come Monday.
yeah, I have a feeling, Q, that it's run its course there. Jim Haslam, the owner there, he's he is in the corner of Shador Sanders, and there's been something amiss all season in terms of, did Stefanski like him, and did he hold him back, and just the organization's a mess. They're kind of rudderless, and Stefanski had a couple great seasons, made the playoffs with
Coach of the year
Joe
twice.
Flacco, and but
Yeah.
it just seems like they're Cleveland, and they're going to do things their way. But I think they do need to have a long term plan, go into the draft, and kind of clean some things up. And that defense is so good. They have some building blocks on that side of the ball.
Yeah, well, it's yet to be seen if Sanders will be the quarterback of the future. I believe Pete Carroll's out. I mean, I think it's one of the worst kept secrets in the NFL, which is weird because they had the whole issue with Max Crosby. I talked a lot about it last week about the tanking, not the tanking. I still don't believe teams, players tank. Crosby's out there shooting hoops on IG, shutting down Geno Smith, no Bowers. But you're also going against a horrible Kansas City team. Like maybe Kenny Pickett's like, well, I want to get something on film, and he's slinging it all over the place tomorrow, and they win the game. they're right there for top overall draft pick. But I think at this moment, the risk to reward for Pete Carroll to go out and back Geno Smith has failed miserably, and that's going to be his underdoing. I mean, that to me, that's the death sentence. The fact that he went to bat, they bring in Geno Smith, it hasn't panned out. That's his guy. They're a bad football team. They're poorly run. I think come Monday, Pete Carroll's going to be out of a job, or more or less, hey man, you want to resign, resign. Either way, hand in your key card.
Yeah, in this situation, let's face it, they bring John Spytek coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they kind of teamed him at the GM position with Carroll. They didn't really have a relationship with each other, and Carroll was brought in to have that veteran leadership, obviously a very old guy, and had that past resume with the Seattle Seahawks. But it just didn't work out this season. And anytime you're talking about any of these teams, like we were talking about Cleveland and Tennessee already got rid of their coach. When they have double digit losses, when you're talking about 12 plus losses in a season, something's got to change, and it can't just be a little cosmetic change like, okay, we're going to get rid of the running backs coach or the receivers coach. It has to be a big change and a whole organizational overhaul. So yeah, I think the Raiders are going to keep Spytek. He'll build this team out. He'll bring in a coach that he wants, and yeah, Pete Carroll, that's probably hit for him, and he'll probably ride off in the sunset.
A couple more for you. Always appreciate the time. Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, Monday 8 to 9 on SR 1029 FM. If you download the AUDACY app, search Coastal Sports Digital Network. Saturday edition on Q. A lot of NFL to get down, to break down. The Chargers, they are resting their players, hence the line is 13.5 for Denver. I mean, look, if Denver can't win this football game, they don't deserve to have the top seed in the AFC. You got Denver, Jacksonville, Buffalo, New England, the Texans. If you kind of gloss and handicap the AFC right now, which team do you look at? I mean, look, there's some maneuverability. We'll talk more about this next week with the seedings. But right now, the hottest team going into the playoffs in the AFC is?
Ooh, that's a good one, Q. Denver has a defense, man, and Bo Nix is efficient enough that and enough weapons around him that they could be dangerous. Now, obviously, they need R.J. Harvey or somebody else to run the football. Maybe Dobbins comes back. We'll see. But yeah, they'd like to get that number one seed and to buy and then kind of get healthy and then go from there. But Denver, yeah, they're definitely dangerous because of that defense. New England, Drake May's had a great season in the MVP conversation. They have a two-headed monster at the running back position. Defensively, though, they still have some holes, in my opinion. They've had some injuries lately, these guys like Tonga and some other linemen. So that's going to factor in there. And Jacksonville at 3. They're probably one of the hottest teams out there, on this winning streak going in. Yes, everybody's going to say, well, who have they beaten? Well, they did beat Denver a couple weeks ago. Obviously, this week they'll probably beat Tennessee. But as long as Trevor Lawrence is playing at this high level, yeah, they could say they're one of the hotter teams, and you got to watch out for them.
How about the Philadelphia Eagles? They're going to rest their players. Obviously, you got some banged up players. You want to get a little more rest. Now, if they had an opportunity for the 2 seed, obviously they need the Bears to lose to the Detroit Lions. I don't see that happening. But it was there for them where if you win a game, you get another game at home in the divisional round. It's more likely they're going to be locked in the 3 seed. But, your thought on playing, sitting, starting, resting. I know the Rams are going to play their starters. Josh Allen's going to start for the Bills against the Jets. But what's your thoughts on the Eagles right now as they close out the regular season against Washington?
Yeah, a team like Philadelphia Eagles, Q, in my opinion, they need to play their guys. You know what I mean? They're too streaky, and you talk about that 3-game losing streak. And yes, recently they've kind of gotten right. But why not keep the momentum? And as long as guys like Hurts are feeling good, and he's not real dinged up this year in terms of nagging injuries like he was a couple of years ago, why not get him out there? Obviously, they want to keep Saquon a little fresh, given all the touches he had last season, and I think that factors into it. So the Bears are going to play at the same time with the Eagles, so it's not going to be like this, scoreboard watching situation. I just think Sirianni, that's just the way he does. He likes to rest his guys. And it's worked to his advantage. Let's face it, he did win a Super Bowl with that mentality. But I like what McVay's doing. Why not go into the playoffs hot on a winning streak?
Right now, Drake May has overtaken Stafford as MVP. The Patriots will close out the season against the Dolphins. The Dolphins went out and they hired Troy Aikman as a consultant. I'm at the point right now where these networks basically better tell these guys, okay, fine, you don't want to fraternize, go fraternize. I mean, Tom Brady kind of, you're saying, all right, exception to the rule, whatever, but Aikman as a consultant, Marino was that consultant as well. I kind of like, picking the brain of a guy like Troy Aikman, especially knowing that they need to bring in the right guys. GM, it looks like they're going to keep the head coach, but they're going to need a quarterback, right? Whether that's going to be a bridge or not, I think they stick with Tua next year, but he might be on the bench and they're going to pay him. To be quite honest with you, but how about Miami bringing on a guy like Aikman as a consultant?
Well, it's a fresh voice coming in the door, Q. But the thing is, with a lot of these guys that were great players, sometimes they cannot see the forest from the trees. We saw this with John Elway with the Denver Broncos. They kind of come in there and they get disappointed by people not having the expectations they had in their career. So I think it's good he's coming in there. Chris Greer obviously had been there a very long time. They stepped away from the GM position. Stephen Ross is searching for something because when you look at Miami, it's been a long time for them in terms of I think they haven't won this division since like '08 or something
Wow.
like that. And they're trying to figure it out. Obviously, that Tua contract we talked about it over and over again is albatross, but Aiken's going to come in there, bring that fresh air in there, and McDaniel. It's surprising, he has a good reputation around the league. Q. A lot of people still think he knows what he's doing. I think he's more offense coordinator than head coach, but Stephen Ross wants to bring him back, and yeah, Aikman definitely can help them move forward. But some pieces on his team, but they got to fix the offensive line, got to figure out with the receivers in terms of Hill and that injury, and then the defense. We talked about that over and over again. A lot of holes there.
I would real quick on the NFC.
Yeah.
The Rams, have an opportunity. It's still to be determined whether they lock up 5 or 6 seed in the NFC. I kind of laid out so many different scenarios, but if it plays to form, right? Seattle, Chicago, the Eagles, Carolina, the 49ers, and the Rams. Let's just say it stays to form because even if the 49ers lose, they can drop down substantially. The Packers, I think the Packers are in trouble. I think the Packers might be one and done. Um, Give me a team other than say the Eagles, defending Super Bowl champs, and Seattle and San Fran. So I'm kind of limiting you that you think could make a deep run in the NFC and could surprise. Can you see that with the Rams? Can you see Carolina if they win the division? Can you see Chicago sneaking up on some teams?
Well, the interesting thing with the Rams is right now they're riding that the 2-game losing
Yes,
streak. So I
yes.
think that's why McVay wants to play to get this bad taste out of his mouth.
Momentum.
They're a dangerous team, Q. They have a championship quarterback. They can run the football. Their defense is sneaky good under Chris Shula, and they have playmakers like Verse on that side of football. So I definitely think the Rams can play with anybody. Puka Nacua is a tough matchup, and if they do end up playing the Eagles in the first round, that'd be very interesting. The Bears, the way Caleb Williams has played of late, he's just been spectacular.
Yeah.
Yes, last week he lost to the Niners, but yeah, he's played well, and that defense is playing really well too. So yeah, the Bears and definitely the Rams are going to be tough outs in NFC.
So, yeah, I mean, that was a great game, by the way. And Williams had more, I think, wide open. That game was a fantastic game. By the way, too, the Rams with no Adams, right? So now with that hamstring tricky injury, he pretty much, I think he's questionable. I believe you don't play him, you get another week of rest. And lastly, before I let you get out of here, how about this? Today's my guy's birthday. Not you, but Eli Manning. That's not what I wanted to say. But do you know what happened this day in the NFL in 1993? January 3rd, 1993. It was part of the 92-93 NFL playoffs. What occurred on this day?
Mm.
AFC.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say the Eagles finally won a playoff game in New Orleans.
Oh,
So I was
yeah,
going to
you're
say
right
that.
with the safety. No,
Let's see, AFC. No, I can't. No.
So
Can't
it
remember.
was either deemed the choke or the comeback.
Was that the Niners versus the Giants?
Oh, I mean, really? Seriously? Is that where that was 2003, by the way? And that's when
Oh no! Oh, yeah. My buddy Warren Moon, who third of my did with he's like, I don't ever want to talk about that game. He said, I did my job. You know what I mean?
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah, basically,
Wow.
yes.
Yeah, 41-38. You know what's crazy about that game? Buffalo obviously down big against the then Houston Oilers. I'm watching that game with my father, and when it was 28-3, I'm like, that's it. And I remember my father basically said, "It ain't over yet, Sonny. There's a lot of football to go, right?" And you're watching just Buffalo, they had so many players out, right? Kelly was out. I think Thurman Thomas was out. Andre Reed played. I don't know if Lofton was in the game or not. I think Bruce Smith was he in that? I know they had so many injuries, but man, they chipped away, they chipped away, they chipped away. Obviously, Frank Wright, obviously, everyone knows what he did in college with Maryland and whatnot. And what was so crazy about that game is that you're watching it and you don't realize at the time you are watching NFL history 38-7, and then you tie up the game 38. I mean, it's crazy. And then they win it on the field goal late. That to me has to be one of the most demoralizing losses ever by any sports team. Like, I mean, think about it. That you can't script that if you're really being fair and honest to yourself. And that Oilers team was absolutely stacked. Now, I believe they got back to the playoffs the next year, but they lost to Kansas City. But they that franchise was so snake bitten. I mean, when you watch a game like that, and we're younger and we're watching a game like that kind of unfold, it's kind of crazy, is it not?
Yeah, and it shows the importance of having a running game once you have a lead. Q. They were all about that
Run and shoot
that run and shoot. Jack Party and all that stuff. That's what started with him and Buddy Ryan fighting with each other and all that because
on the sideline. That's right.
they were they had Haywood Jeffries and all those great receivers with Warren Moon. I talked about, and they could put up points really quick. But sometimes the NFL is a game of possession. And give the credit to the Bills. They just stayed the course. They kept getting the ball and then they kept scoring. And those were some great Bills teams. Marv Levy did a great job in terms of just having those guys believe and they kept playing. And you talk about the backups, Frank Reich came in there and he played such a great game. And they, Bennett at the running back position, and they just had so many great guys on that team, and they were another one. Unfortunate, ringless team, and we'll see if
Yeah.
this year's Bills
Yeah.
can
For
come
sure.
back and do something for because they're way back now. But I think they could be a dangerous team in the playoffs.
It's funny too about that game. You mentioned the ground game, and you're right. They couldn't run the football. Lorenzo White, they ran it 19 times for 75 yards. And oh, by the way, Warren Moon had to pick in overtime. So I'm just
Yeah,
saying, had a bad pick in overtime. Now he threw it 50 times, 374, 4 touchdowns. Did Frank ever start a game again? That was his greatest football moment until Philly special. No, he started a couple more games.
yeah, he was always that great veteran
Yeah,
backup you could have come in there. Him. I always say about Don Strock with the Dolphins. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Those were the days of the bullpen. You had a guy that could come in there.
Yeah, he started a couple more games after that. It was a fascinating game to watch only because if they had like in-game live betting at that moment, it's 28-3. It's 28-3 at the half, and then it was the pick six coming out the first possession in the third quarter that got it to 35-3. And then they exploded for 28 in the third quarter. And I think it was Bubba McDowell. Bubba McDowell in the third quarter. I pulled up the chart. So it's 28-3 going in the locker room. The tip ball, McDowell returns it 58 yards in the third quarter, 35-3. Davis scores to make it 35-10. Don B 35-17. Back-to-back possessions. Reed 25 yards, 18 yards. Actually, Andre Reed scored 3 straight touchdowns in that game.
Yes.
Plus, remember too, they got the onside kick.
Right, right. Tasker had a huge play, I believe, on the special teams, and then you had Reed,
Yeah, yeah.
out of Kutztown. I mean, unheralded guy's big time player. I mean, it. What a great win! I remember there was NFL films they did on that, and they just it was agonizing. I felt bad for all the Houston fans that
So I asked,
watching that.
I did a event at Hard Rock a couple years ago when the Chiefs played the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Uh, Joyner was there, Selleck was there, Amani Toomer was there, and Thurman Thomas was there. So we were up on the stage, we were doing a Q&A, and prior to about 4 or 5 hours, I was just kind of sitting with Thurman Thomas. It was the first time I ever met him, and I said, you know, we were just talking football, right?
Yeah,
And I said, is there anything? I said, I don't like to put people in an awkward position. And he kind of chuckled. He's like, go ahead, you can say it. And I said, is there, do you want me to steer clear of anything? And he's like, no, you can ask away. And I said, okay, so I can, I said, off the record, I'm a Giants fan. He goes, don't bring up wide right. I said, okay. So he would have been the MVP of the Super Bowl.
yeah. Norwood.
Yeah. But those were great. But that's where the NFL is so different. Like this year, for instance, I don't see a juggernaut of a team coming out. I don't. I think you for all these playoff teams, and no disrespect to Carolina, Tampa, Green Bay, I think you can make a case for and against all these teams when it comes to hey, they have an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl and win it.
Yeah, Q, it's wide open. And, I was just talking to my son about this. Reminds me of '08, the season Tom Brady got hurt, and it was just kind of wide open for everybody. And almost same thing with Mahomes this year. It's wide open. And that year, I believe it was the Steelers versus
It
the
was Steelers in Arizona.
Cardinals. Yeah.
It was the
And
Steelers in
that's just how
Arizona.
what an improbable matchup that was in Super Bowl. We did not see that one coming, especially,
Yeah.
Cardinals coming way back. And this year, I kind of feel the same way. It's like, okay, yeah, way back, my preseason pick was Eagles versus the Bills. That's still alive, but I
Sure.
just don't see that happening, Q. I just think it's going to be one of these upstarts and one of these young quarterbacks that really takes the moment and seizes it. So it's going to be interesting. Is it going to be Trevor Lawrence? Is it going to be Drake May? Is it going to be Caleb Williams? And it's going to be fun seeing the maturation process of these new quarterbacks because you even wonder like, yeah, okay, the Bills have made it back, but they're the seventh seed. That's going to.
Yeah.
They don't remind me of that Ravens team that went on the road all those and won all those games in the
Yeah.
playoffs. I just think they're just kind of deficient this season. Um, watch for Houston in that defense too. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
D'Amico
Hot at the
Ryans has
right
done a
time.
great job,
Yeah.
and being a Giants guy, when you have a great defense, think of that '07 team, and they can get pressure on the quarterback. That can change everything. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I'm really interested to see about that.
you brought up 2008, and remember the Giants lost to Cleveland on Sunday Night Football. They got destroyed. Then they won 11 straight, and then Plaxico had the gun issue, right? Shot himself.
Right.
They didn't have him available, if you remember. They played the Eagles divisional round. Now the Eagles, Westbrook bailed out McNabb, wild card game against Minnesota on the road, took a screen pass, went 60 something yards,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I remember again telling my father, I hate this matchup because the Eagles always beat the Giants. So now you go in Meadowlands, you get the win, opening kickoff. Bradshaw takes it 60 something odd yards. You get it in pretty much, I think it was the Eagles 2025. And Eli floats one up and it just basically caught by the wind. And they missed a field goal. And that was pretty much it. That was the friggin', jerk off jackass McNabb picking up the phone on the sideline. But that team played Arizona in the NFC
Correct.
Championship.
They
And
had a
that was a
chance to
great
win.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was
Warner
Kurt
went off.
Warner. How improbable was that? Everybody thought his career was done. He goes
Well,
out
because
there
of the
and
hand issue, right? I mean, the Giants signed him. He couldn't hold on to the football. He turned it over. They bench him after 5, 6 games. They go to Eli, and then Warner has an opportunity, and he resurrects his career with Arizona, gets in the Hall of Fame.
yeah, Edgerrin James too. I mean, it was just crazy how, all those great stories. And I feel like this year, Q, it's the same way. You don't know who's going to step forward. And that makes it exciting this
You're
time of
right.
year.
You could get a Chicago and Houston Super Bowl.
Yeah, which would not be a horrible matchup.
Nah,
There's only a couple teams you look at them and you say, all right, they probably won't have a chance. But I think all these guys have a chance. Even if Carolina snuck in there, they have some quality wins underneath their belt. Think about them beating the Rams earlier this year.
Yeah, Carolina Houston Super Bowl is not sexy though. I'll tell you what would be a really fascinating Super Bowl to watch, like Denver, a Denver and Seattle again, a Denver and the 49ers. Going a little old school when the 49ers put up friggin' 55
Yeah,
points against poor
that'd be a great game. And I'm interested to see, can Matthew Stafford find the magic again. That was a bad loss for him against Atlanta. They
It
had that
was.
game in his hands, and he just had some interceptions,
Yeah.
and Bijan had a game for a lifetime.
All right, brother. Always appreciate you. You're going to be on Monday night, right?
Yeah, looking forward to Monday night. We'll recap everything that happens this weekend, and I'm looking forward to all the games, and yeah, we got a couple in a few hours, and we'll see if your Carolina Panthers can pull it off, my man.
Yes. I won't pronounce half the players on the Panthers because I'll just butcher their names like I did with CMC. But we'll catch you Monday, 8 to 9. I know you'll be on with me on Q during the week and also back your play. But greatly appreciate the extended time. I'm glad you had a nice little family trip and now you're back
Yep.
in the States, a little football, a little hot toddy, and we're ready to go. But always appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
All right, Q. Talk to you later.
All right, there you have it. My guy, Lloyd Vance. Great stuff. Gave me a lot extended time today. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase. Use the promo code BYP20. Get social with me. Very easy to do at Rich Q on Q, X, TikTok, IG. A lot of eyeballs today. You guys are unbelievable. We're going to see schedule wise tomorrow with the hoops. We might try to squeeze on another little rapid fire. We were only going to go for about 20, 25 minutes today. We're well over an hour and a half. You guys are the best. If you like the content, don't forget to engage, comment, hashtag on Q. Follow me on social media. Also, we are on Coastal Sports Digital Network, CSDN X, my X account. I see about 800 views, plus the YouTube channel. You guys are fantastic. Like, comment, subscribe. And hopefully we'll do a little power hour manana. If not, back in the saddle, full throttle, Monday to Friday, 4 to 6 on Q. Download the AUDACY app, search for Coastal Sports Digital Network. Appreciate Lloyd Vance jumping on board. And thank you to all the sponsors, as always. Get ready with T3 Brooks Bourbon, fresh roasted coffee, Played Against Sports, Monmouth Park Charity Fund. Enjoy your little double dip of NFL games. For the record, again, I'm going to go with the 49ers tonight. And earlier game, I'm going to go with Carolina on the road with the upset. And you got the picks. I laid them out on Back Your Play, which is also on Apple, Spotify, and iTunes as well. The audio version via Podchaser, Podcaster, and Buzzsprout. All right, good stuff from you guys. Always appreciate it. Back in the saddle, either manana or Monday straight through with on Q 4 to 6. Have a good sports Saturday. Be safe. Be sound. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. This has been a little Saturday edition of On Q. We will talk to you either tomorrow or Monday. And as always, hasta luego, mendiga.